We were just talking a minute ago about the length that this store's been open. 1975?
That's when I first opened the store, but I kind of was buying and selling guitars. I grew up in Miami, and I started in Miami, and then I came out with a band in 1970. And because I like to eat on a regular basis, I figured the guitar thing was probably the smarter move, so I kind of transitioned into Plan B.
Wow, I used to live in Miami, Coral Gables area for a few years.
I went to University of Miami, so did my wife. Yeah.
Amazing. Too hot for me now, though.
Humid, too. Yeah.
So you were just out, before internet, obviously. How were you just coming across pawn stores and buying rare guitars?
Well, it
stuff
was
that you knew was legendary?
It was kind of a pretty inside thing with vintage guitars. I had a band called Kathmandu in the late 60s, and I had a guitar player and bass player. They both played guitar, and they both doubled on bass, and neither of them had a bass, so I ended up buying a bass so that they could kind of switch off, and I figured maybe at some point I'd learn how to play bass. It turned out I ended up buying an old jazz bass out of the newspaper in Miami, and it was from a legendary R&B performer that in Miami, there was a band called Frank Williams and the Rocketeers featuring Little Beaver, who was like my favorite guitar player and singer. The guy's amazing, so still not as well known as he should be. And I ended up buying this bass from them, and then everybody wanted that bass, and people started making me offers on it, and I went, wow, this is pretty cool. I can actually maybe buy and sell some musical instruments on the side and make an actual living.
You sense the lucrativeness of it. Was it generally like famous musicians had played the guitars, or were they just guitars that were hard to come by?
No, I mean, at the time, like a lot of the manufacturers had gotten to a point where at first they tried to perfect their designs, and they made them the best that they possibly could. Once they got the designs down, they got to the point with how do we save $2 on this part, and how do we save $5 on this, and eventually it was kind of being evident that the quality was going down. And sometimes they perfect it and then they try to save money, and so some of the top players in Miami noticed that, and they wanted some of the older instruments. And I was actually a Hammond organ player back in the day, so I didn't really, I played a little guitar and a little bass, but
the
but
B3?
That was kind of, I think, B3, right?
Yeah.
So, but we realized what the differences were, and my guitar players kind of showed me, check out the neck on this ES335. Now let's check out the neck on the newer ones, what they're doing, and they made the nut real narrow on the newer ones. The early ones had PAF pickups. They just were warmer sounding, and they pointed me in that direction, and then I kind of picked up on that and realized that the old stuff was made with more care. A lot of the times also the wood, before it ever became a guitar, might have been 50 or 100 years old.
Oh, wow.
And now they have to artificially age the wood, and now everything's done with these CNC machines, but back in the day there was an individual thing that happened with every guitar. They were all different from the next one that came off the line.
When did they start artificially generating the wood?
Well, out of necessity, that's been more recently in the last 10 years or so. But what happened was they started running out of these really great aged tone woods. So what ended up happening is they had to figure out a way, and some of it is marketing, some of it's a little hocus pocus in my opinion. They can do certain things, but there's nothing like true age with wood. That's the whole point of the Stradivarius violin and all that.
Yeah, even I just spent $1,500 on a Martin DRSG, and the neck's different wood. I'm like, I didn't notice it till after. I don't know.
Some of them are like these compounds, and they're it's not actual solid wood and that kind of thing on some of the lower end models.
How were you advertising? Were you on tour and you had a couple instruments with you
well,
always?
When I came out, we had a pretty good band, and we got very lucky because one of my first very big customers was George Harrison.
Oh.
And he had a guitar that was given to him by Eric Clapton that got stolen, and they found the guy that bought the guitar in a store in Hollywood, and he wanted the guitar back for sentimental reasons and the fact that it was a great guitar. So this guy bought this guitar in a store in Hollywood. They were able to trace the guy down, and it was a late 50s Les Paul, which was affectionately known as Lucy because it was a red Les Paul from the late 50s. So when they contacted the guy said, listen, I bought it from this store in good faith, and I would like to have a similar one, to replace it. I'm happy to give George back his guitar. And he went into this store that was owned by a friend of mine. My friend said, well, there's only one person I know that's got some of these, and it's this guy Norm in the Valley. And then word kind of started spreading amongst the players. Robbie Robertson from the band was one of my early customers too. I had an ad running in the LA Times, and he saw it for some of the instruments I had for sale, and he contacted me, and then he called me a week later. I had like an apartment just filled with guitars, and nobody had vintage stuff, at the time back here. So he asked me, would I mind if he could bring in one of his friends next week. I said, no problem. And he comes walking in with Bob Dylan. Oh. And then they brought in Robin Ford and Joni Mitchell, and it just kind of by word of mouth just kind of started going.
And that circle.
And 1975, I kind of became a business. I had to think about opening a store, so I opened a tiny store.
Where at? Was
on Tampa and Van Owen.
Okay, in this area.
It was a 500 square foot store. Then we moved to the corner. We got an 1,800 square foot store. Now this is a 6,000 square foot store. So we've kind of been forced to kind of expand.
That's an amazing story. I knew you guys had been here, and obviously I've seen your YouTube videos with everyone from Tom Petty to Dave Grohl and all the documentaries. And
Tom was a very good friend and actually and a customer. And I played in a band with Ron Blair, his bass player, for 2 years before he was in the Heartbreakers.
That's amazing. It was so sad to hear him pass
suddenly. No, it was a terrible shock.
He was in here quite recently. Maybe within a year of his passing.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. In fact, I'm involved with a charity called the Midnight Mission, which is a homeless charity downtown. And I talked Tom into playing for the Midnight Mission. And he did with his first band, which was Mudcrutch, which was a couple of guys from the Heartbreakers, Mike Campbell and Ben Montench. And he decided that he was going to put his original band back together to do a tour. And I had a guitar that Tom really wanted. It was a really rare Rickenbacker guitar. And I told him, it's not for sale, but if you play for me for this charity, we'll make a deal and I'll trade you for something you're not using. And he did. And when he finally got the guitar that he wanted, he used it on the Super Bowl. That was his favorite guitar. It was a Rickenbacker 12-string that was very rare.
When you get the early success of Robbie Robertson, George Harrison, I mean, that obviously just fuels you to keep doing this. It's God's way of telling you to keep.
If I opened a store, if I was going to be in business a year down the road or not, now we're, many years later.
At the original store, were you carrying like modern guitars as well?
No, in the very beginning, it was all vintage. And then it got to the point where, we started doing modern guitars as well because they're affordable, and we didn't want to kind of be so elitist that we were just doing this one thing. My real love is in the vintage guitars, but we have a lot of even beginner guitars for young people just starting out, and pro quality, mostly pro quality, new and used, and then the vintage, which is really my main thing.
Do you get a lot of internet sales? Do people get customs?
A lot. And maybe about 9 or 10 years ago, we started doing this social media campaign. And thanks to Jen and my kids and the young people that worked here, and it's kind of blown up. I mean, we have well over 400,000 subscribers for our Guitar the Day thing that we have on YouTube and Instagram. And Michael Lemo has a very big following, and also Todd and Nick and all the other guys here. Jen has a following, but she kind of hides out behind a camera, so she kind of is afraid to step in front of the camera.
Have you ever been approached to get a chain going to these and have one?
Many times, but I'm afraid that if I did that the quality might go down.
Yeah.
And I like kind of being hands-on. I'm very hands-on.
That's amazing. What's been like, I mean, I don't even know if you can answer this question, but just the highlight of the store, you think?
I mean, there's been a lot. We've been very lucky. We
Just one that
supplied
stands
instruments to a lot of movies, from Back to the Future to Spinal Tap to, other movies that the guys from Spinal Tap did, For Your Consideration, and The Mighty Wind, and a Bette Midler movie called For the Boys, and The Temptation Story, and this Why Do Fools Fall in Love with Frankie Lund.
Yeah,
A lot of times when they
Wednesday.
need something from a certain time period, they'll come to us, and we try to
Do you
that.
lease it to them, or do they just purchase
A lot
it?
of times we'll lease it. Sometimes they'll purchase it, depending on the budget of the movie and whether they want to lease or want to buy.
Were you a guy back in those days when, like, George Harrison got his guitar stolen? Billy Corgan he wrote Gish out of
Billy's
guitar.
a friend of ours too. Billy's
We
been
love
a
you, Billy.
customer for many years. Yeah, he's a great guy. I know you're from Chicago, and Billy's from Chicago, and he's a great guy.
But were you a guy that if someone had someone stolen, you could kind of locate it for them, like a
Not
stolen car?
necessarily, but I mean, like the thing with George Harrison, it wasn't that we were able to locate it. He had located where the guitar ended up. And they contacted the guy, and the guy said, look, I wouldn't want to separate you from your guitar, George, but so I'm happy to exchange it for another one that's very similar. So when they came to me trying to find one that was similar, that's where I came in.
That's an amazing story. Was Kurt Cobain ever in one of your stores?
Kurt Cobain was in, and so was
I see
Courtney
Dave
from
Grohl.
Hole
Okay.
at the time, and some of the other guys, from the Seattle scene, were coming in. I mean, we kind of,
Everybody.
being in LA, I mean, that was one of the luck outs of my life, that, we just happened to be in the right place at the right time.
I mean, the pictures in here are enough to purchase this book with all the great guitars and all the pictures of you younger on with Robbie Robertson, Jeff Bridges, Billy Corgan, Joe Bonamassa.
Yeah. Joe is like one of our, family here, and Angela Petrilli is part of the family here. I mean, she's a fantastic guitar player, and she is really together, and whatever band, if she ever decides to join a band or does the solo thing, whoever it is going to be very fortunate. She's very talented.
That's why
and
we're
very
here.
focused. So, and she does videos for us from time to time, and we're proud to have her.
All the amazing, from Gary Clark Jr. and all these people I've talked to, they all watch Angela's videos because when they want to figure out a song, they know that she's mastered it somewhere on Petrilli Picks.
Yeah.
And it's just so cool. They're like, oh, I know her. I was just talking to Johnny Rattler just literally on the way here. He's the drummer for Gary Clark, and he's like, oh, I love her.
We have a thing called the All Guitar Network that's kind of the brother or sister to our videos, and there's a lot of stuff that Angela has done on that, and so has a lot of people. Joe Bonamassa actually owns a little piece of that, and it's if you like our videos, which we have a lot of people, we have about maybe 150 million views combined on all our videos, and and we have a podcast that we started, and we had like Vince Gill and Joe Bonamassa did it, and this guy Don Peake from the Wrecking Crew, Dweezil Zappa, on and on. A lot of our friends, T-Bone Burnett's coming in shortly to do one. So Angela did one, and so it's been a cool thing, and it's a lot of fun for me because a lot of these people I've become friends with over the years, and it's instead of it just being an interview, it's like some friends talking, and it's doing very well, and it's picking up steam all the time.
And that's the All Guitar Network, and that's a separate channel.
The podcast is a podcast wherever you get your podcasts, which would be Spotify or Apple or however you would get that. The following week, we do the podcast, which is audio only. And then the following week, the video comes up on the All Guitar Network. It's all free. So the All Guitar Network is an app, and you sign up for that,
okay.
and that's free. And you get to see the video of the podcast if you want to see what we look like, which is not me, but the guitars and the people that come in.
Yeah, the visual is so key for me when I want to. I mean, obviously with guitars also you could hear it, but I want to see what it looks like, and also with guests and stuff.
You want to see how they're playing,
intimate.
what they're playing, and also, when you start talking about a guitar, to picture it in your mind is one thing, but to see it actually in person is really cool.
What's the most expensive guitar you have in here? Or most legendary guitar, I should say?
Well, I have a warehouse where there's a lot of stuff besides that, but we have a lot of memorabilia. I mean, there's some basses in the back there with these crazy shapes that were owned by Jermaine Jackson from the Victory Tour. I have a guitar in the other room that was one of Tom Petty's, and when I did that deal with Tom to play for the Midnight Mission, he traded me a guitar, and I have his top hat that this guitar he used when he was out on tour with Dylan, and the top hat that he wore when he was out on tour with Dylan. So we've been selling memorabilia for many, many years too. Hard Rock Cafe has been a customer for many years, and we have other memorabilia buyers.
Oh yeah, I never thought about that. Yeah, Hard Rock. I was like, where do they get all this stuff from?
A lot of it from us.
Even in Vegas, I used to stay there. They're closed now, but I was like, where would they get this guitar from? And
well, they liked us because they knew that these people actually came in and they knew that it was authentic. There was a time where they did a book, and a lot of the guitars that were pictured in the book were like these Squire Strats and stuff that none of these groups would play because the companies would be happy to give them guitars that are worth thousands of dollars. And these are like $100 guitars signed by Paul McCartney, like a right-handed guitar where he's a left-handed mainly bass player, and so they kind of got busted with that at one time. And of all the vendors that they got their stuff from, they knew that our stuff was real. We would provide them a video with the person that owned the stuff and to verify that it was authentic and that it was really something that was stage used or studio used and that kind of thing.
You see these fans, or I guess they're probably not even fans, but these guys coming up to famous guitar players, and they'll have 6 pickups with them and just sign them up and slap them on an old Yamaha piece of shit.
Signers, and that's not a guitar that was really stage used or used by the artist. It's just somebody ran up and they signed a $100 guitar and that kind of thing. And a lot of those get given away at charities and stuff like that. But there's a difference between real memorabilia and the signer stuff. And the signer stuff is basically like an easel where they just sign a canvas, and it's more the signature that you're paying for.
Do you still play in a group or anything?
Not
or
anymore. No, I gave it up a long time ago. I figured out what I do best. It's this, not that. So.
And you're in store most days?
I'm in most of the time, yeah.
When Dave Grohl shows up, does he just walk in, or does he make an appointment?
Just walk in. Most of the time, they just drop in out of the blue.
That's too cool.
We can sit there for 2 hours, and it could be very quiet, and then all of a sudden, who knows, walks through the door, and so we get a lot of actors as well that love to play.
Oh yeah. Is Jeff Bridges a player?
Yes, he is.
A good one?
He is good. Yes,
what about Steve Martin? Is he come in and look at
Steve
the
Martin
banjos?
I've never dealt with, but I've dealt Jeff Garland, who is on Curb Your Enthusiasm. He's a guitar player a lot of people don't know. And
he's coming on this because he's friends with Matthew Bottone, and they're both photographers for Leica ambassadors.
Sure.
And we got him on here. I'm always at the comedy clubs, and he's from Chicago too, so he's an incredibly nice guy.
Dean Del Rey from the comedy club. Dean is a real buddy of ours.
We just shot his podcast. I'm actually doing his Bon Scott tribute too. The producing the video for it.
Dean's a great guy, and we
shout out Dean Del Rey. Yeah, he's awesome.
He's a character. Yeah,
he's got a great podcast. Let There Be Talk.
Yes, he does. I did one years ago.
That's exactly what I was thinking coming in here.
They were doing it at Universal. The area by the park there. They had at the I don't know if it was the B.B. King Club or one of those clubs where he had a setup over there.
Yeah, Dean goes anywhere. We were just at the Whiskey A Go-Go with him, and he always fits him in when he's on tour with Mark Maron and all these guys. But yeah, he's an amazing comic. I mean, he was in music for 25 years too, and I'll be sure to tell him
he's an old
here and show him this. That's awesome. One last question. Who is your favorite blues guitarist?
Well, the guy I mentioned before, Little Beaver, is my number one favorite guy. But Joe Bonamassa is probably, in my opinion, the quality of his play at this point, he may be the best that ever lived in terms of just his ability to play. But, of course, I love B.B. King, and I love Little Milton, and I love, Otis Rush, and I love, Albert King and Freddie King, and, on and on and on,
Buddy Guy.
Buddy Guy is another one. You know, there's a lot of really good ones. But Joe, his ability to play at this point is pretty astounding. If you see him live, he, you know, and I've known Joe since he was 12. He's like family to me. And
did he grow up in the Florida area? Or
no, he grew up in New York, in Utica, upstate New York.
Just from
his
the
dad
guitarist.
had a small guitar shop that
wow,
was
I
sort
didn't
of
know that.
like what I do, but on a smaller scale at the time. His dad's a great guy, Len, and I've known the whole family and for many, many years. And Joe has also been very integral in getting us a lot of social media attention too, you know, and we love Joe, and he's the thing about him is not only is he a great player, his head is on straight. He's a fantastic businessman. He's got everything going, so I'm really proud of him.
Yeah, he endorses Eric Tesmer, where I met Angela at. Do you know Eric Tesmer from Austin, Texas?
I know who he is. Yes.
Yeah, he's a fabulous player, but I think he has something to do with Bonamassa on their website.
Yeah, well, I mean, he kind of nurtures a lot of these young players and has really been helpful to a lot of them. There's a guy named Josh Smith and Kirk Fletcher. And
I know those guys come to Hermosa Beach all the time.
Yeah,
Kirk's a great
players,
guy.
Yeah.
I didn't know they were associated with Joe as well.
Chris Kane is another guy. Well, he has a blues cruise, I go on it every year, and it's unbelievable. I mean, there's themed cruises now that for everything.
Yeah.
And so if you like 80s rock or 90s rock or hip hop or country or jazz or whatever, there's a theme cruise for that. But Joe has one called Keeping the Blues Alive, and it's one of the most unbelievable things because Joe has his finger on who he has every year, and the quality of the acts is fantastic.
That's so amazing. I have to come back here and really talk to you for an hour or two. And I'm so glad you were here today. Thank you so much for sitting down with us, sir.
It's my pleasure. And, you know, Angela is, you know, a rising star. And Angela is, you know, she's really good people. And, you know, she's very smart. She's a great player. She's very sweet, but she can be real tough, too, because she's a business person. So you don't mess with Angela. So
I just spot the talent. I was like, we need to talk to her. And, she got on stage with Tesmer at the El Cid on Sunset over there and just blew the doors off the place. And
as she usually does.
Thank you. Norman's Rare Guitars here on Ventura Boulevard in Tarzana. It's nothing but legendary. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
We're going to actually see the hat and the guitar from the Midnight Mission.
Well, this was, I ended up getting it because of the Midnight Mission thing, but it was Tom Petty was a very close friend of mine for many years, and there was a guitar that I had that he was after, and I was able to convince him that if he could play for the Midnight Mission, I would do a trade with him. And it was a very, very rare Rickenbacker. It's a Rose Morris model that was made for export to England, and it had a Hesse's receipt in there. Hesse's Music in Liverpool is where the Beatles got all their equipment. So Tom wanted the guitar bad. He's a big-time Beatle freak. So I said, Tom, if you're willing to play, I'll do a trade with you, because he kept bugging me for the guitar, and I promised him it was going to be his.
What would the price on something like this be?
On this guitar?
Ballpark. Is this a bidding war?
Probably with the hat about $150,000.
Yeah, it's fine.
Yeah, you can't sell something like that, though.
Well, you know what? I wouldn't if I was a younger man, but at my age now, I'm not holding on to as many things as I did when I was younger. I've got a lot of cool memorabilia, but this is probably the best piece of memorabilia I have.
And this is Tom's hat you have here?
Yeah, this is his hat. This is when he was out with Bob Dylan, his top hat. And he signed it in here, too.
Wow. That's unbelievable.
And when the Heartbreakers were backing up Bob Dylan, he wore this and he used this guitar. This is an SG standard. And he signed the guitar. And here is a picture of Tom and Bob, Tom wearing the hat and playing this guitar.
Unbelievable.
And he signed the back of this too. This was my SG on Dylan Tour 87.
That is just beyond cool.
It's a pretty cool piece of memorabilia, you know. I mean, it means a lot to me, but you know, I mean, it's just
who makes that hat? I'm a big hat freak. Let's see, Baron California hats.
Yep, custom made.
Yeah, BARON. That's unbelievable, and just such,
yeah. No, it's
so
it's
sad that he
something.
passed,
Yeah.
but to
I know.
have your hands even on it, I just want to touch it one time.
No, you want to wear it? Put it on.
Oh, please let me put it
it
on. Oh my gosh.
Look at that.
Mr. Petty, you've been such an inspiration to me, and this is one of the coolest moments in my life. And everybody else, obviously. I don't think I can do this hat justice, but thank you very much, sir. That's very nice of you.
It's no problem. He played the guitar and wore this hat when he was out with Bob Dylan, so it's kind of got the double whammy on the, when it comes to kind of the memorabilia thing.
When you met Dylan, he'd come in, or you'd have contact
I've known
with him?
Dylan for 40 years, too. I knew him prior to The Last Waltz. I supplied the instruments to the movie The Last Waltz. Whatever Robbie wanted, Robbie Robertson, was the producer of the movie, and he kind of came in and he had a budget, and there were certain things that he figured he could have the movie pay for, and then he would own them. One thing was a one-of-a-kind Martin guitar. There was a Citation #1, which was the first one ever made. There was a lot of really cool stuff, and Robbie knew his guitar, so he was no dummy. He had the movie pay for some of the stuff, and there were a few things that I kept that I loaned to the movie, and we have screen credit in the end of the movie as well.
What's Dylan play on? When you first started meeting with him, was it acoustics you were doing in, or mostly electrics at that point?
I've done acoustics and electrics with Bob. Bob, at one time, I sold him a 52 or 53 Fender Telecaster. And there was a story with the guitar that was kind of a nutty story. The guy I got it from was on tour with the Three Stooges. They had like a kind of musical group that went out and toured with the Stooges. And this guy,
Wait, the Three Stooges, the actors?
The actors.
Not the Iggy?
No.
Okay.
No, this is Three Stooges, the actors.
Oh my goodness.
They had like a traveling band that kind of went with them, played a little music, I guess, at their shows when they did live events and stuff. And I remember actually when I was a kid seeing the Three Stooges in Atlantic City, and I remember one of them saying, you got to get your kids into bowling. Get them off the streets and put them in the alleys. So I just remember that line from when I was a kid.
That's incredible. So how did that guitar come into play then?
So I ended up buying it from him, and I asked a lot of the time, people a little of the history, and he said, by the way, I was in a backup band that traveled with the Three Stooges, and so I ended up getting the guitar, and I sold it to Bob. And I believe Jacob has the guitar now, and I've known Jacob since he was about 12 years old.
Yeah, and Jacob and Dean Del Rey are good friends too.
And Jacob was with the Wallflowers, and he did the movie Echo in the Canyon. He was kind of the narrator.
They shot one of the scenes at Sunset Sound, and they went to all the great studios. That was a great documentary.
Yeah.
Let me ask you one other question. Just totally switch channels. Adam Jones from Tool. Has he ever came by?
Adam hasn't, but Nick, who works for us, Nick Dias, plays with Justin and Chancellor in a side project. Yeah. And so we know Justin, and we know Danny, and Adam. I haven't really met Adam. He's the one that I don't know.
Yeah, he stays home a lot, I've heard, and doesn't do interviews, and
the whole band is kind of pretty aloof, so
to say the least.
But Justin's a really good guy, and we like him very much. And he's bought a bunch of stuff from us over the years.
Amazing, sir. Thank you so much for sharing that with us.
So you wanted to see a couple other kind of cool guitars. I'll just show you. This is a Martin guitar. This is a 1928 0045.
Ooh.
So this was the biggest and the fanciest guitar they made in 1928. This is the bomb. I mean, there's been repair here and a couple of repairs on the guitar, but it's Brazilian rose. It's a smoking, great sounding.
They didn't know what Dreadnought was then. This is the
Angela, come here a minute.
Oh,
yes.
Play a couple notes on this
I
guy.
just heard.
With me playing it. That's why I wanted you to play it.
I'm scared to play this, Norm. It's too beautiful.
What's the price tag on something?
Oh, God.
50,000.
$50K in your hand, Angela. Don't drop it.
It's featherweight.
100 years old.
Featherweight, and it still plays and sounds fantastic. They knew how to build a guitar to last.
How did you acquire this?
This is one I bought from a fellow collector. These are very rare. They made very few of these, and like Stephen Stills has one, and just certain people. But I don't know what the production total was, but because this was expensive at the time, they made very few. I probably made no more than 20 or 30 a year, because this was their top of the line. They made a lot of other plainer guitars, but whenever you see Martins that have pearl going around the top and it has pearl around the back, this is Brazilian rosewood. Their lesser expensive instruments were mahogany sides and back, some of them even mahogany top. There's a spruce top, ebony board, ebony bridge. They call this the pyramid bridge.
Oh yeah, wow, I didn't notice
And
that.
it has
so cool.
the, kind of the flower pot up on top here.
This is their original
torch,
logo then, I guess?
Oh, well, the logo is back here.
Oh, and it was the same as it is today.
Yeah. So, but on this model, this is their torch design, which was their top of the line. This was as fancy as it gets at that moment. So it's just a beautiful example, just a really tremendous guitar, and it's just as functional today as it was back in the day. And like 28 was the year when the guitars became more practical for even like today's play. Prior to that, most of their guitars needed to be set up with gut strings or nylon, or but at this point you could actually start using the steel strings. So this was the beginning of Martin's heyday.
And is this the case?
This is the original case. Yes, it
Holy
is.
cow.
Yeah.
That's what's so great about these amazing, instruments, and just
Well, there's a lot of history. I'm sure there's a lot of cool
just to think
stories.
who's been holding this or where they carried it to, and songs that were written on it, and
Absolutely.
when you have 92
This thing's
years
even older
old,
than me.
you and me together.
Thought. Probably. So this is a 1958 Stratocaster, and this is all original, stunning condition, three-tone sunburst, maple neck.
Was this the first year they came out with the Sunburst?
No, 54 was the first year of
54.
production. And the 54 would be an ash body with a two-tone sunburst. This is a three-tone sunburst. So it's the first year of the three-tone with a little red in the sunburst. Prior to that, it was like dark brown or black to the yellow. But this has a tinge of red in there. But this is just an amazing example. Beautiful, beautiful.
And this guitar is for sale at Norman's Rare Guitar. You can get it
That's
on-
right. And,
What's the price tag on that? 60?
No, 35.9.
35.9.
So it's just one of the thing with a lot of these guitars is, as the more original that they are, and the less that they've been tampered with, the more they're worth. Now you want something. This has got everything because it plays fantastic, sounds great, very little wear on the guitar, but it hasn't been messed with. Guitars that have been modified are worth less. Yeah. This is like the way it left the factory.
Who would be some players that we'd know that would play on a 58 Strat?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of people. I mean, from Robbie Robertson with the band, and to Eric Clapton, to on and on. I mean, this is the most popular guitar ever made. So.
That's another one of the guys.
With the 59, did they keep another model of this?
Well, that was the 59 was the first year of Rosewood. So
Okay.
this was, and they did both maple and Rosewood in 59, and then they went almost exclusively to a Rosewood fingerboard.
Unbelievable.
And then somewhere here,
Let me grab a break.
you got that Les Paul. So this next guitar is a 57 Les Paul Goldtop, and these are kind of what got guitar collectors collecting. This in the Sunburst Les Paul. This is very similar to the guitar that Dickie Betts used back in the day with the Allman Brothers.
Wow.
And this guitar is about $100,000. And
I just was can you
Show
repeat
somewhere.
exactly what this is again?
it's a 1957 Les Paul Goldtop. Dark sides and back, gold finish, patent applied for pickups, small frets. Just a very, very cool guitar. These things sound incredible.
This is amazing. What's going on here? Just some.
So the finish on these, they were thin finish, and through sweat and stuff, it would react with the paint, so it would kind of oxidize. This is actually still in very good condition. I mean, I've seen some of them where there's very little paint left on them at all, but these things sound good. They take a licking and keep on ticking. So, but you know, when you compare this to the newer ones, you would understand why the demand is so high. I mean, Joe Bonamassa's got a bunch of these, and I think he's got about 14 or so of the sunburst Les Pauls. Those go from anywhere from 150 for one in kind of bad condition to up to $500,000. And Joe's got, I think, 14 of them.
What is the most expensive guitar I've heard? Like Kirk Hammett from Metallica was chasing after a guitar that was like 1 million, 1.2.
Well, you know, when they're
all buyers.
That has to do with the memorabilia value. If it was something that Jimi Hendrix played, or you know, somebody really famous and it was one of their main instruments, that's something. But this is just based on the guitar. This has nothing to do with who owned it, who played it. It's this is strictly for the guitar itself. Now, again, if this same guitar was owned by somebody real famous and was used mainly in their career, it could triple. It could be even more than that.
Do you go to Sotheby's ever and go to auctions?
I've done some auctions, and I've put some stuff at auction. The only thing is that, you know, with auctions, you do want to be able to inspect the instruments and see what is right and what's not about them. Generally, they're fairly forthcoming, but it's a good idea to know what you're buying when you're doing this. Get it through somebody who's knowledgeable, who's going to tell you the straight story with them.
Have you ever, you know, maybe in the last 10, 15 years, went into like a pawn shop or a Salvation Army and found like straight gold, a needle in a haystack?
Not in 10, 15 years, but back in the day before the internet, yes. I was kind of very, very lucky in a lot of instances because there wasn't the information out there. Now anybody can go online and they get all the information they need. So you don't find those things happening anymore. You know, it's somebody has to be pretty much of a recluse to not figure out what they had.
Yeah, so amazing, so amazing. Again, Norm's Rare Guitars, they have things starting from $500 all around.
Actually, from lower than that, from like $100 on up. You know, we have some beginner stuff, but at least it's decent beginner stuff. And then our main thing is a lot of pro quality new and used guitars. And then we have mostly American made. And then we have our collector's items, and that's kind of what our main focus is. But we're really a pro shop and a collector's item shop.
Also, I didn't realize you guys do lessons next door too. So
we do.
If you want a lesson at Norman's Rare Guitars, I mean, it's an amazing place to be in.
And our All Guitar Network, we have lessons on there from some of the greatest players. Joe has a little thing, Joe Bonamassa, called Live from Nerdville, Josh Smith, Kirk Fletcher, Rick Vito, on and on. So they have like these classes that you can they have like some introductory stuff, and then if you want to go deeper, they have like a little paywall, and if you want to go beyond that, you can get almost like private lessons with some of the greatest players.
Incredible. Well, I'm buying a t-shirt right now, and definitely if you're in this area, come down.
You're not
here.
going to buy this guitar?
Well, I was hoping you'd let me borrow it for a night to try it out. I don't know.
I like it, but not that much.
Amazing, sir. Thank you so much for having us.
My pleasure. Don't sir me.
All right, brother.
Norm or brother?
When you're hanging on by the skin of your teeth, any little lie can make you feel so free. I might not have a lot, but what I got is mine. You might have it all, but only borrowed time. But I can walk the walk, 'cause I've been on my way. You only talk the talk because you're here to stay. If you want a dream, take a ride with me. It ain't your easy living, but it's all